and welcome. My name is Tracy and with Designs by JuJu, and today I'm going to be doing a video tutorial on our mermaid. And with this tutorial, I'm going to be doing a step-by-step instructions, and we're going to go over the front, the back, how to attach the tail, and I hope you guys enjoy this video, and I look forward to getting started. I have hooped my stabilizer and I am all ready to go. The first part of the instructions, it says make sure to hoop your stabilizer. We've got that done, and we're going to be doing a placement stitch for the tail. So basically it's just going to outline the tail and it's going to show you where to put your fabric. Okay, so we have our placement stitch here, and then your instructions tells you to grab fabric A. So I already have it labeled. This is my fabric A, and you're going to lay it so it is right side up. So this is my back, this is my front, and I'm going to put it right side up, right over, making sure I cover all the stitches. You want to make sure it's even as possible. And then your next stitch, you're going to be running a tack down stitch, which is going to secure this fabric to your hoop. Okay, so the tack down stitch is complete. And your next stitch is going to be the little decorative stitch. That's the front of the mermaid. They look like little scallops. So if you haven't done so, if you have a single needle, go ahead and change your thread, because this will be a decorative stitch to whatever color you want. I've chosen purple. So I'm going to go ahead and run the decorative stitch. Okay, the decorative stitch is complete. It did the scallop stitches right there. Our next stitch and the last stitch for this particular hooped sequence, you're going to grab your other piece of fabric, because you're supposed to cut two of these. You're going to grab the second one, and you're going to be placing it right side down. And if it's directional, so like I have these scales, I want to make sure that the direction's the same. And you're going to lay it right on top. And then you're going to run the last stitch in this sequence, and that's basically just securing this piece of fabric to the hoop, also making your tail complete. Okay, so the last stitch is done. I did the purple so you could see that the outline stitch is done. So what you're going to do now is you're going to unhoop everything, and you're going to trim the tail. Leave the top as is, just trim around the sides. So it would probably be easier to trim on this side, the non-scallop side, and just follow this line and leave about 1/4 of an inch all the way around the tail. And make sure you get into these little areas right here so that way it turns nicely. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove this and do my cutting. I'm gonna hoop another piece of tearaway stabilizer, and then I'm gonna show you what the tail should look like. Here is the tail. So I cut from this side, and I made sure I left at least 1/4 inch of a seam allowance right there. And I really got into, let me see if I bring it close. You really want to get into these little curves right here, so that way it turns nice. But here's the one side we stopped with, and then here's the scallop side. This you're going to go ahead and put to the side for right now. Okay, so the next design you want to have loaded into your machine is the arms. That's what's next on the instructions. So I've already hooped my next piece of stabilizer. So you want to grab fabric B. That is what we're going to be working on. So here's my fabric B, and let's get our hoop ready. And the first stitch is it's a placement stitch. It's basically showing you where to put your fabric. Here we have our placement stitch. So you're going to grab both fabrics that you cut for fabric B, and you want to place them down over your placement stitch. Make sure that they are right sides together. and then you're going to completely cover the placement stitch. So now that we have both of these fabrics right sides together down, our next stitch is a tack down stitch, and it's basically going to do the same rectangle that it just did, and it's basically securing this piece of fabric to your hoop. Okay, so here we have our tack down stitch is complete. And now the last stitch in the sequence, see, this one is really simple. This is just the arm, so you should only have 3 steps. The last step and the last stitch in the sequence is to do the outline of the arms. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, so we are all done with the arms. So as you can see, you have the outline of the arms, and we're going to do the same thing for the arms that we did for the tail, which is we're going to remove everything from the hoop, remove the stabilizer. You're going to cut around the arms, leaving at least a 1/4 inch allowance. But instead for these, you're going to turn them right side out and you're going to stuff them and then put them aside. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I will show you what I did. So here are the arms that we just did. And this is how they should look. Don't overstuff. Put just enough in there to give it some shape, and make sure you leave enough room at the edge. So like I didn't stuff it all the way to here. So that way it lays nice and flat for when I tack this to the body. So you're gonna go ahead and put these aside. Okay, we're on to the hair. I've got my stabilizer prepped and ready to go. Our first stitch we're gonna do is a placement stitch. Okay, so we have our placement stitch. And now you're going to grab the fabric labeled fabric C. You should have 2 of them. You only need 1 right now. So you're going to grab the first of the 2, and with the right side facing up, you're going to place it over the stitch, and then you're going to go ahead and do the tack down stitch, which will secure this piece of fabric to the hoop. Okay, so the tack down is done. And what it's going to do next is on the inside of this rectangle, it's going to do the outline of the hair. That's going to be like the 2 little side ponytails. So it's going to do the outline next. So the outline of the hair is done. For the inside pieces, it's going to be the next is a decorative stitch that's going to go on the inside of these 2 ponytails. So if you haven't done so, change out your thread color, and you can change it to whatever color you want. Okay, so the decorative stitches are now done. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to grab your other piece of fabric and you're going to lay it right on top of all of this. And then the next stitch is going to secure, it's just going to do a rectangle stitch, which is just going to go secure this piece of fabric to your hoop. The rectangle tack down stitch is done, and now the last stitch in this sequence is outline of the ponytails again, and that's just going to make it so you could see it on both sides and also hold the shape of each of them, so that way you can cut it out later. The rectangle tack down stitch is complete. The only thing left to do is it's the last stitch in the sequence, is the outline of the hair. So the outline is complete. So like we did with the arms, you're going to go ahead and remove this from the hoop. You're going to cut around the outline, leaving about a 1/4 inch, and you're going to turn them right side out. These you do not stuff. You want to leave flat, but I do give them a nice ironing so they lay a little bit flatter or not so puffy. And these are what the hair should look like. Turned right side out. And then I did a little ironing so they lay a little flatter, give a little bit more shape. So this is what they should look like. Go ahead and put these to the side. Okay, we're on to our next segment, which is the back of the body. And you should have the file labeled body back up into your machine. And the first stitch is going to be a placement stitch for the fabric. Okay, so your placement stitch is complete. So you're going to grab one of the two pieces of fabric marked D, and with the fabric right sides facing up, you're going to place it over the rectangle that you just did, making sure everything is covered. Okay, so I'm going to run my tack down stitch, which is going to secure this fabric to my hoop. The tack down stitch is complete, and now the next step in the sequence is a position line. So it's going to run just a single stitch, and so I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll show you what we're going to be doing next. Okay, so the last stitch sequence just placed this line, this placement line right here. You're going to grab fabric E, and you're going to take one of them, and with the right side of the fabric facing down, you're going to place it right on that stitch line, because basically their next stitch is going to be a tack down. It's going to do a stitch right on top of the last stitch, and then you're going to bring this fabric up, and it's going to look just like that. Okay, so make sure, just put it a little bit over the line, not too much, because like I said, you still need the fabric to be able to flip this way. So I'm going to run this stitch, and then I'll show you our next step. Okay, so the tack down line is done, and you can leave, I left about 1/4 of an inch over the line. That's how much I went over, and that line, that tack down line, goes exactly on top of the other one. So from here, you're going to grab your fabric, and you're going to pull it so that it's just like this, and you can push down a little bit to really get that crease and flatten it out. Okay, so the next stitch in the sequence is going to tack down the fabric. It's going to do a half of a rectangle, and it's going to just tack down this fabric so that way it lays flat and it's secured. Just in case you didn't see it, the side that I started the fabric on down this way was actually the smaller of the two rectangles, and then up here is the larger of the two rectangles. So I started with the fabric down here, face down over here, and then I flipped it to the larger side of the rectangle. All right, so I'm gonna do this next stitch, and I'll be right back. So it ran the tack down stitch, so now this is secured to this piece of fabric. So what you're gonna do for this one is, all you're gonna do is remove it from the hoop and remove the stabilizer. Don't do any cutting. You don't have to cut any of this. So just remove the stabilizer, and then we can put this off to the side, because we're gonna start working on our next one, which is the body. Okay, so I'm gonna remove this, and I'll be right back. So this is what we did last, and this is how it should look. All I did was remove the stabilizer. I did not do any cutting. So we're going to put this off to the side with the rest of the pieces that we had made previously. This is actually our last stitch file that we have to upload, and it should be the body front. So you should now see the face of your mermaid. And our first stitch is going to be a placement stitch for the bottom half of the mermaid. Okay, so our placement stitch is complete. So now what you're going to want to do is grab fabric F, and you should only have cut one piece, and with the right side facing up, you're going to place that over the placement stitch, and just make sure that all the sides are covered. And then you're going to run the next stitch, which is a tack down stitch, and it's going to secure this fabric to the hoop. Our tack down stitch is complete. So for our next step, you're going to grab fabric G, and with the right side facing down, you're going to place it just above this line right here, this top of the square line, because your next stitch is actually it's a tack down stitch, it's not a placement stitch. And this next part is exactly like we did the back, where we took the fabric, we put it face down, and then we flipped it up. It's going to do the same exact thing here. So you're going to want to, I'd say, put it about 1/4 inch over, which is almost pretty much aligned with the top. You're going to run that stitch, and then we're going to flip it over. Okay, so we have secured the fabric. So now you're going to want to bring it up, and like the last one, really push it out, get a nice lay down on that seam. And if you have fabric that doesn't want to lay flat, like this is a micro fleece, you can grab some tape and put it at the top. I put it, let me show you. Okay, I'm gonna put it right at the top there, just enough. So I'm gonna pull my fabric a little bit and press it down. I just wanna make sure that I really get a nice hole here. So now it's nice and taut. All right, so I'm gonna run the next stitch, which is just gonna go and make a rectangle, which is securing this portion and to the hoop. Okay, so now that this portion is secured to the top, it's going to do, our next stitch is the placement stitch for the hair. Okay, so now that the placement stitch is done, you're going to grab the fabric labeled fabric H, and you're going to cover the placement stitch of the hair, making sure that the right side is facing up, and then you're going to run the tack down stitch. So your tack down stitch is complete. And before we move on, you're going to want to grab your applique scissors, and you're going to want to cut just this bottom portion. So from here over up to the flower and over to the bottom side. So you're just going to cut away this portion right here. Okay, so as you can see, all I did was cut the bottom portion. And your next stitch is going to be a placement stitch for the flower right here. So as you can see, it has the placement stitch for the flower. So you're going to grab fabric I that you've chosen, and you're going to place it right over the flower, making sure covering all sides. And then you're going to do the tack down stitch. Okay, so the tack down is complete, and now you're going to take your applique scissors and you're going to trim around the entire flower. And then our next stitch, which I'm going to go ahead and do, is a placement stitch for the seashells, which are for down here. I'm going to run the placement stitch right after I trim the flower. Okay, so I trimmed around the flower and I did the placement stitch, which that's what was next in the sequence, the placement stitch for the seashells. So now you're going to grab fabric J, you're going to place it over your placement stitches, making sure that it covers all of the sides, and then you're going to run your tack down stitch. Okay, so the tack down stitch is complete, and now you're going to take your applique scissors and, like the flower, you're going to trim around and remove all the excess fabric. And the next few stitches are all decorative stitches. You're going to complete the face, and then it's going to start running the satin stitches around the hairline, the flower, the seashells. So go ahead and do all of those, and then I'm going to do those as well. And then when I come back, you should start seeing the complete front of the mermaid. Okay, so our mermaid is coming along. Now, I have completed all of the decorative stitches, which is the face, the satin stitches that went over the cut parts, the applique parts. So now we're going to start to assemble our mermaid. So our next stitch is going to be a placement stitch, and it's going to be for her arms. So you want to start grabbing all of the pieces and having them close. And our first one is going to be our right arm. Okay, so here we have our placement line for our arm. So you're going to take the arm, and with the thumb facing up, so the arch facing this way, you're going to place it over the line, and it's going to do a tack down stitch to secure it. So basically when it folds right side out, the arm will be like this with the thumb facing up. Okay, so we've attached our arm. So the next stitch is a placement stitch for the hair. So you're going to grab the hair that when you put it down on the hoop like this point is facing up, and the decorative stitch is face down. So you're going to place it just like this, almost like covering her face. And depending how much of a pigtail you want it like super short, then you would bring it closer to the stitch line. But if you want it out a little bit, put it right there. So basically you want to make sure that after it's tacked down, that this portion is clear of this stitch area right here. So say if you want it down like this, you'll just have to fold it in and keep that in place so it's out of the stitching field. So I'm going to go ahead and tack this down and I'll be right back. Okay, so we tacked down our hairpiece and see how this comes off. If you did it shorter, then you can go ahead and trim it down so that way it makes it a little less bulky in the end. And now we're going to move on to our next placement stitch, which is going to be over here for the other hair. Okay, so the placement stitch over here for the other hair, you're going to grab the other piece, and just like this one, you're going to make sure that the pointed end is facing up and that the decorative stitch is facing down. And then you're just going to do the tack down stitch. And then I'm going to go ahead and trim the rest of this off as well. Okay, so I did the tack down stitch, and then I removed the excess fabric here. And then I also did the next stitch, which is a placement stitch for the other arm. So you're going to grab your other arm, and just like this one, just in the opposite direction, make sure the thumb is pointing up and the curve is going like this. This should be good, and then you're just going to run the tack down stitch. Okay, so our tack down stitch is complete, so now we've got both of our arms and our hair done. So you're going to want to fold these out of the way. If you need to, just grab a little piece of tape just to keep them out of the way. Because next we're going to work on the tail, attaching the tail, and you want to make sure all this is out of the way. The next one is a tack down stitch. You're going to want to do the placement stitch for where the tail's going to be. I'm going to run and do this one real quick, and then I'll be right back. Okay, so here is where you're going to place the tail, the little line above the bottom box. So you're going to grab your tail, and the scallop side where the decorative side is, flip it over. This portion right here, tuck in. If you need to tape it, whatever you need to do, just make sure it's tucked in, because all you want is this side being tacked down. So you want to tuck this side out of the way. So here is the back side, and then here's the front side with the stitching. So once that's out of the way, you're going to place it with the tail up and the decorative scalloped edges up, those decorative stitches. And the line, that top line right here of the tail, you're going to place directly on top of the line, centered on the line that was just created. Just like this. And now you're going to run the tack down stitch, which will secure the tail to the hoop. Okay, so now our tail is secure. I went ahead and got rid of the tape over here. So all you're going to do is take your tail and bring it down, because this portion is all done. The next portion, actually the last stitch in the sequence, there's if you look at your machine, there's 2 stitches left, but you're only going to complete the next one. The next one is the outline of the body, which is going to attach the back side that you made earlier to the front of the mermaid. The last stitch is just a stitch that was placed there on this side to prevent the machine, once it's done, from going back to the middle. So, because you're gonna have all this bulk under here, you don't want it to do that. You want it to finish over here so it won't come back and start pulling everything. So don't worry about that very last stitch. The next stitch we're gonna do is just secure this. So what you're gonna wanna do is bring the tail, you can untuck if you want to. Bring the tail down, tape it out of the way if you have to. Okay, so let's get finished with our mermaid. So you just want to make sure that all this stuff is tucked in as much as possible in the stitching field. So it's outside of the stitching field. And then you're going to grab, this is what you made earlier. It's the back body. You're going to turn it so it's right side facing down, and you're going to place it on top of the mermaid. And you're going to want to make sure that this seam right here, the red and the, well, for me, the red and the beige, line up with this seam right here. So you're going to line them up, and that's how it's going to stitch out. And I would also advise to slow down your machine to its slowest setting so you can kind of guide it along. And that way, if you do run into any issues, you can stop it right away. All right, I'm going to go ahead and complete this, and then I'll show you what it should look like. Okay, everybody, she is all done. I ladder stitched her closed in the back and gave her a nice stuffing. You can put the hair to the front, to the back, but either way, she is all complete. I hope you guys were able to follow along, and this really is a simple and really cute in the hoop project. I am sure we're going to be seeing lots of them. So I hope you guys liked this video and it helped out a lot. All right, everybody, happy stitching.